Sorry.
Gotta love it. Okay. Fabulous. All right. Well, you already know who I am, so we'll skip through that part. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Instagram, which is super fun. We're going to go over business profiles. So we'll talk a lot about the dashboards, the tools and metrics that you have in there that you can use, as well as like some different tips and tricks. We'll talk about like, just different things that have to do with Instagram. So diving in here, like I said, we are going to go over business accounts today. So personal accounts are a little bit different. There's not as many cool things that you have available as far as the tools in the dashboard if it's a personal account. So we'll dive in with going through the business account. So if you want, I can walk you through how to set it or switch it to a business account, or do you know if yours is already set, either Julie, Kimber, whoever?
I have mine set as a business account.
Perfect. Okay, so once you do that, or if you haven't done it and you're wanting to do it today, just give yourself a few weeks for the information to start to populate. The longer you have it set, the more information it can gather. So if you set it, I think at minimum, it'll take a week to start populating data, and then the longer you have it, it'll give you more and more information. So the reason that I love the business profiles on Instagram is because, first of all, your followers can click to contact you straight away from your profile. It allows you to create and publish Instagram ads without needing to use Facebook's advertising tools. So you can do it straight from Instagram. And then there's all of the analytics and tools that are called insights that provide stats about your posts and impressions and all of the things on your account. So once you have that business profile, you can unlock a lot of those tools. So when you're looking at the metrics, one of the things you can do is like keep an eye on the growth rate of your followers. You can see how the content you're posting is working and see what adjustments you need to make. You can also check engagement rates. And the other thing that I really love about Instagram, if you look at the bottom bullet point there, it says the average click-through rate, CTR stands for click-through rate, on Instagram is 0.94%. So that is actually much higher than standard click-through rates across other platforms on the internet. One of the reasons that is because Instagram, if you do it right, feels a lot more organic. So people are more likely to interact with your posts, especially when you're talking sponsored ads. So click-through rate, if you're not familiar with that, what that means is if you have a sponsored or paid ad, the number of times somebody clicks on it versus the number of times it pulls up on someone's feed is the click-through rate. So if you're talking standard advertising, most of the time you're looking, a good click-through rate is going to be actually like 0.07 to 0.09. So Instagram is actually quite a bit higher, which is really, really great. So it's a good place to be, especially if you're marketing your business, if you do it right and you can make it feel really nice and organic. So what we're going to go through first is the tools dashboard. So this is called your insights. If you have not dove into here, the easiest way to find this is if you go to your Instagram account, and you can pull out your phone now if you want to have it out now. You can click on your profile. So it's not showing your feed, but just your profile, your own pictures, nothing else. Up in the top right-hand corner, there's the 3 little lines in the top. So that's where you can click here to get your insights. And insights is the 4th one down in that little menu. So you can click there. And once you get in there, you're going to see this insights overview. So there's a bunch of different information you can get right from this page. So obviously this top arrow here is going to go over the accounts that you reached in this last week from your posts. It's going to go over your engagement. It'll go over your followers. And then you can also go down into the content you shared and look at the individual content. And that'll scroll through whether it's posts, stories, reels, videos, lives, all of that. There's separate categories for each of the places the content that you would have shared. So we'll go through these kind of one at a time and just give you an overview of what each of them looks like and why the data that is there is important for you. So the first one is your accounts reached. So once you click into accounts reached, you're going to see some information here. This first reached audience in the center, that you can actually scroll across and it'll give you some general insights just across each one of those little snapshots. So the first one will tell you top cities, then it's going to go to top countries, it goes to top age ranges, and then it'll go to gender, which is also great. So you can look at each of those, and it tells you also your percentage that you either increased or decreased from the prior week. So that is also really helpful information. So you can see how your engagement is going there. Okay, once you scroll down past that, it's going to tell you, which this is actually newer information. It didn't used to do this, but it tells you how much reach you got from followers versus non-followers. So depending on what kind of content you're putting out there, right now, Instagram is really pushing reels, and you can see I didn't really do many reels that week, and so this is pulling from past reels. But when you use reels, it'll actually help to push it out more to non-followers. And same with if you're doing that for your posts or your stories, hashtags are a great way to increase your reach to non-followers. So you'll want to make sure that you're looking there. The next thing it's going to do, you'll see it'll show you your top posts that's based on engagement. So you can go through and see which of your top or how your posts are performing. And then if you look at this third little picture over on the right, down at the bottom, it tells you impressions. So when you're looking at this, you want to be able to make sure that your impressions to your reach ratio, that you're getting good split in that ratio. So what that means, impressions is every time your posts load on someone's page. So that is a really good indication. If you are posting things, if my reach was 300 and something, I can't remember, 385 different accounts in those many days, and my impressions were 1,300, that means that each person saw me roughly 4 times. So that's what we're trying to do, is build that up and get that as high as possible so that people are seeing you more often. And the way that you do that is through some post engagement. So you want to make sure you're kind of keeping an eye on that ratio and getting that up as much as you can. Then below that, what you'll see is your profile activities. So you're going to see like profile visits, website taps, whatever your calls to action are that you have set on your account, it's going to tell you how many people engaged with you through the different activities that you have open for people on your profile. So that's also very helpful information, okay? The next one here is your interaction. So you can actually go in and see like how your account or how your posts are doing. So if I click on those posts, I can actually go in and see it's going to open up for me based on interactions, how well my posts were performing. So I can come in here and see, okay, this post performed really well. These ones maybe not so much. And I can see what the difference is in each of those categories, so I can start to post more content like that in the future. The other thing you can do is in these drop downs up top. So in the center one, if I drop it down, you'll see right now it says reach. So that's how many different accounts saw my post. I can actually switch that and see how my things are performing in other ways. So how many followers I gained from a certain post, or perhaps like how many people saved my post or how many shares I got, any of these things. So you can select the metric you want to check and make sure that your posts are performing in the ways that you want to, and that people are following through with the calls to action that you're putting out there. Does that make sense? Okay, does anyone have questions on those so far? Perfect. Okay. All right, so here we're going to go now into where it says accounts engaged. So this is your engagement. This is going to talk to you about, again, this is the how many I got up from the week prior. It'll tell you how many were followers versus non-followers. And then I can also look at content interactions. So this is going to tell me, like, if I look at these posts, like how many likes I got, how many comments I got, shares, saves, any of that stuff. So I can really start to track how my content is performing. And I like to keep that information on a separate spreadsheet because I plan out my content. And when I'm mapping out my content, it's very easy for me to go back and at a glance see how all of my stuff is doing, so that then I can reuse things or repurpose things to continue on that trend of how things are performing. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. The last one that you can look at here in the metrics is your audience. So that's under the total followers. So once you pull that up, it's going to give you an immediate snapshot of how your growth was overall during that week. And it'll tell you if you were up or down to the week before. It tells you again your top locations. It gives you your age ranges. It tells you your gender. All of that is such great information, but my favorite one is actually on this bottom right, where you see most active times. This is such amazing information to have at your fingertips. You can change this across and scroll and switch days. You can see which time of day is best for you to post on each of the days. You can also switch it to days and see which days are most popular for your people. So that's really helpful information. One of the things too, that when I first started digging into this, I did a little bit of research just to Google like what Google says are the best times to post. And I kind of found a few different articles. And one of them was saying that like Sundays and Wednesdays are probably the worst times to post, except for that we live in Utah, and in Utah, people sit in church for several hours in the day, and they're typically scrolling on their phones. So the fact that, you know, if I was to just go off of Google, I would actually miss that because of where I am and who my followers are. So that's just kind of something to keep in mind. And versus here, it says like Sundays and Thursdays are the best days to post. Well, when I was looking at this for my fitness studio that I own, Thursdays are actually one of my worst days to post versus like Monday and Tuesday are some of my best. So I'm actually able to come in here and check the data for my followers and not have to rely on what Google says or anybody else. The other one that pulled up that was interesting is that, you know, CoSchedule said the best time of day to post is between 8 and 9 a.m., which that's pretty standard for most people, but it also says as well as 2 a.m. But if I go back and look at mine, like you can see that 2 to 3 a.m. is actually my worst time to post. So I would not want to follow what I just learned on Google. I want to actually follow what Instagram is telling me is accurate for my followers. The reason that that's important is because when we do a post, your post has the most traction within the first, I would say, 15 to 30 minutes of you posting. You want to make sure that's when you're getting traction and those likes and those comments and different things, because when that happens, it is what clicks the algorithm for Instagram, and Instagram will actually start pushing your stuff out to more people. So you do want to make sure that you're scheduling your post to when the most people are going to be online and see it right away, so that it will help you boost your algorithms. So just kind of keep that in mind. That is just kind of what I would recommend, but definitely something to track and watch for yourself. Content is the next thing we kind of want to cover. Content is huge, especially on Instagram. So the thing that makes Instagram really fantastic is it is a photo sharing app for the most part. So photos and videos are going to perform very well. You need to choose what you're putting out there very, very wisely. Your photos, the videos you're choosing, and of course, like the opening title or the opening 2 lines of what your post is need to be able to pull people in to your post so that they're getting that engagement right away, and it draws them in to allow them to want to open up and read more about what you've posted. So you want to be very strategic about what's going there. People really do buy into stories, and they buy into things that connect through emotion. So being able to tell your story once a week, tell why you do what you do, talk about what you do, who you are, what you're passionate about, all of those things, make sure you're doing that on a very regular basis. And I know we get a little bit caught up. I don't mean tell your life story every time, but tell pieces of your story or use stories to talk about what you're doing or talk about your post, because that's going to draw people in, and stories connect to people emotionally. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect. Okay, now let's talk about actual, not storytelling, but actual stories on Instagram. So that is a separate feed. It's up at the top of Instagram. When you open it up, the little circles that appear up there, they stay live for 24 hours, which is great. And they can be a lot more raw or authentic, more unpolished, if you will, than your traditional feed. It's a little bit different. Stories are a really great way to get in front of a very engaged audience. So I don't know if you guys are users of stories, but they are really fantastic to just, like, when people get into stories and feed, it's kind of like reels now. They're designed to keep people in there. So you kind of just keep swiping and swiping and swiping to the next ones. So make sure that you're using stories. It's a great feature to have. One of the things that I will suggest is try to not have too many stories up at once. I think it gets really overwhelming for people if they open up your thing and you have, 100 different stories on the top. I recommend like 5 to 7 at any given time is a good amount to have to keep you in front of people without getting overwhelming for people. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're going through. There's a lot of fun things you can do in your stories to add to them, make them a little bit fun. Instagram loves when you use their little features and things. So anytime you can do some fun things with like adding stickers or hashtags or whatever you want to do to it, Instagram's going to help boost what you're doing. So just every so often throw some things in there, make it fun. That's what it's there for, and the stories will perform well. If you're going to do things like the features that have like asking the questions or the polls or the different kind of things that direction, I always recommend that you give people a positive thing that they can respond to so that they are more engaged with you. If you give them something like, people don't want to tell you no or say something that's going to hurt your feelings. So you want to make sure you're giving 2 positive options. So I wouldn't do something like, hey, do you like this paint color? Yes or no, because people maybe don't want to tell you no. So instead, like, which one do you prefer, A or B, right? Like this one with the donuts. Would you prefer plain or sprinkles? Nobody is going to get, upset when you tell them, oh, I like a sprinkled donut over a plain donut. It's just, they're going to be more likely to engage. So have fun with it, but give them some positive options to respond. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about Reels. So Reels are the newest feature on Instagram right now. These are short form video. They're a lot of fun. There's tons of different things you can do with them. You can add music, which is super fun. Instagram right now, if you are doing Reels, so a lot of people like to do them from TikTok and then put them also on Instagram. I will say, if you do them straight through Instagram, you get a much, much higher reach with them. So you want to make sure, whoops, one ahead. You want to make sure that you're doing authentic content here. You're posting them straight from Instagram. Use the music from Instagram. Use the original video without the TikTok watermarks, and that's going to help you get better reach. The short form video they're pushing through right now, really the stuff that's doing really well is like 7 seconds and under, or even 15 seconds and under. Some of the longer ones, you have to really keep your audience engaged and have some good information. You want to have a lot of movement right out of the shoot, and just really draw the audience in. So these are a fantastic way to grow your audience. Right now, the Reels that I've put out lately, probably the last 3 or 4, have had reach of anywhere from like 6,000 people to 10,000. I have a couple that are closer to 20. And those are obviously reaching people outside of my regular wheelhouse. So Instagram is really pushing these out to bigger audiences. So this is a great opportunity to jump in and start getting some traction and growing your reach simply by doing the short form and Reels. Does that make sense? Okay, and don't get all hung up that it has to be real estate stuff. You can do lifestyle stuff. You can have fun with it, showcase your personality here. whatever you can do, but I would definitely dive into Reels for sure. Does anyone have questions on Reels or stories for that matter? Okay. So the other thing I would say that this does differ from is you have several different types of video you can do on Instagram. Lives is probably the other one besides stories that you can dive into, or there's also IGTV. So those are going to be more of your longer form video for Instagram, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. All right, let's talk about some tips and tricks here. The first thing I want to talk about is your bio, and we have gone over this with Facebook a little bit, but I do want to reiterate it here. You want to keep your bio a very good showcase of your personality, and you want to dribble in real estate, right? So the one on the left is really just for fun. I just thought it was, you know, his website that he has there is just funny. I do not have a website because I do not produce content.com/broken URL. Like just for fun, like he's a comedian, obviously. So it fits what he's doing. The one on the right, I think, is a better example of how to kind of set one up, where she comes in and talks a little bit about herself personally, like where she says, I'm a big fan of male coffee in mornings, chief editor over here, you know, oh, by the way, this is what I do professionally. So when you drip it in, then people don't feel like they're going to be bombarded with sales stuff all the time. They want to be able to buy into you as a person. So if they look at your profile and they're trying to consider whether or not to follow you, you need to have enough information that's going to draw them in, that they're going to feel connected to you, but not that they're going to be sold all the time. So just kind of be very coy about it and go ahead and mention real estate here. Your bios are searchable. So is your handle, and so is your name. So I don't recommend having real estate all over the place. I do recommend having your full name somewhere. And you can also put in your bio real estate, obviously. And in the handle, you could probably do something about real estate there, but make sure that your first and last name is searchable for people. So just kind of be careful there. Okay. All right, let's talk a bit about hashtags. This is another thing that is pretty much very, very specific to Instagram. Instagram is very, very big on hashtags. They are very good to use to help to drive people to relevant content. It helps you to reach larger audiences outside of your own sphere. And you can really dive into getting connected to people and growing your reach this way. So one thing to make sure you do, keep them very concise, relevant, and conversational. You want to make sure too that if you are using more than one word in your hashtag, throw a capital letter at the beginning of each word for a couple of reasons. It helps people to decipher them and read them. It also helps any of the technology that's out there that for people that are sight impaired and it reads things back to them, it helps that technology to be able to define where the words are. They can actually read the words instead of just having it be like a gobbledygook thing. So just kind of keep that in mind. Do not put spaces or punctuation marks in your hashtag. So it'll actually kill off your hashtag if you put a space between the words, or if you add punctuation. So if you have like an apostrophe in there or anything, that will kill it off. Emojis do work for hashtags. So if you have emojis in your hashtags, they will work in your hashtags. So just kind of keep that in mind. A few other hashtag tips. Once you compile them, I like to keep a list in my phone in my notes of the ones that I use on a regular basis. So I keep those in my phone. And that way I can, depending on the topic of my post, I can go in and just copy and paste the ones that I've already researched that I know are good ones, and use those. You can put them in your post or you can put them in the first comment. It will work either way. So it doesn't matter. Instagram allows up to 30 hashtags, although sometimes you can do all 30 and there's no penalty, and sometimes there's like more of a sweet spot. So play around with how many hashtags you're using and see where you're getting the best engagement. And then if something seems to happen where you used to get really good engagement and now it's dropped off, try changing the number of hashtags you're using. Maybe use fewer or more and just play with it a little bit, because that is something that the algorithms change quite frequently. Also, if you are using hashtags to promote and drive more traffic, do not use the carousel feature for Instagram. For some reason, if you have multiple photos in your posts, the hashtags don't work as well. So I would just say, if you're going to do a carousel post, don't worry about the hashtags, or maybe just kind of understand that you're not going to get as good of hashtag reach there. And then I always recommend to create a branded hashtag or two, things that you can let your clients use in posts if they're going to tag you, different things to help you start to become recognizable. So definitely recommend having one or two of those as well. Okay. Do you have any hashtag questions? Cool. All right, so now I'm going to go over just a few of the apps that I use on a very regular basis to help me with my Instagram. We'll talk about those. Lightroom CC is a fantastic one. This is an Adobe-based app. It can be used to edit your photos. You can change the exposure on them. You can also change the color tints and hues and all of these things, so that you can really dial in, making sure that your photos have a nice, consistent feel and look to them. Another one that I really love is Lensa. There's some really great things you can do with Lensa. Also for photo editing, you can do some video stuff on Lensa as well. I cannot remember how long the videos, I think it's 15 seconds or less, but you can do some of the light editing in video there as well. Canva is another one that I use on a very, very regular basis. It's great for creating graphics, other branded material. You can get things animated. You can add videos to them now. And Canva just really is a super lifesaver, especially for a business owner that's doing tons of stuff. Love Canva. And I definitely recommend having Lensa and Canva are both ones that I recommend having the pro version on. If I remember, Lensa is just like a one-time, you can pay just a one-time fee for it. Canva is monthly, but I absolutely recommend having the Canva Pro. It is so, so helpful. And the things that you can do in the Pro are just phenomenal. Lightroom CC, I think, is great with the free version. So I don't think you need to pay for Lightroom for sure. InShot Video is another one. I do have a paid version for InShot. I get asked this one a lot because a lot of people, especially with iPhones, don't love iMovie. And so they've asked for what I recommend instead of iMovie. I think InShot is great. Another great one for video is CapCut. So again, those are ones that I would recommend having paid versions. So just kind of a little bit of info there. And that is it. So I am free for questions now. Can open up and ask any questions, but this is my contact info. You can follow me. You can reach out, whatever you need. Cool. No questions? Or are we trying to unmute? I can't tell. Can't get it. That's fair.
I had to switch 14 times because my internet at home doesn't work very well.
Oh.
I had to switch to my phone.
No
But
worries.
no, I don't have any questions. I think a lot of it, I just kind of have to get in and play around with it. I think.
Yeah, for
I've
sure.
never done a reel, but I've been watching them, and then of course watching TikToks, and then so when you do the Instagram reels, they actually do they feed into Facebook. Is that,
Yes.
or do you have to make them do that?
I think that there's a button that you just, it's like just automatically done. I think you have to take it off for it not to go to Facebook. But yeah, definitely gets more reach because it does push to Facebook. But the reels have been really great too. I even noticed it's almost like they don't have a shelf life. Like I've had some that, like, there was one I put up at Christmas, and when I first put it up, it kind of got like a couple thousand, whatever. And then it was like a month later, all of a sudden it just like blew up, and it went from like 2,000 to 20,000, and it hadn't done anything for a long time. So
I had actually watched somebody else's that did that same thing, and then she's got comments in there about, oh, this is outdated information. Well, yeah, I didn't delete it.
yeah, of course, duh. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Like you can see it get like a good surge. So just kind of play around with them, but they really are fantastic to get some additional reach.
Awesome.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, we will